What if one random day there was a knock at your door? Not a loud one, not an aggressive, just curious. When you opened it, it was you. But you were 10 years old. You were shorter, you were louder, you had less of a filter, and no fear of looking stupid, no weight behind your eyes, just standing there holding whatever he used to love most. Maybe a basketball, a gaming controller, maybe nothing at all. He looks up at you and smiles like he's meeting a superhero. So this is who we've become. And in the moment before you can even answer, you realize something. You spent years trying to impress the world. You've never thought about whether you'd impress them. They walk in, look around your room like it's some kind of museum. They touch things like they're achievements. You have your own space, you can drive, you can make your own money. At 10 years old, adulthood looks like freedom. No bedtime, no asking for permission, no one telling you what to do. They'll think you unlocked the final level, but then they might start watching you closer. They'll notice how often you check your phone, how your mind drifts even when nothing is happening, how you sit down, but you don't really rest. And he tilts his head slightly. Might even ask you some questions. Why do you look tired if you're not doing anything right now? You realize you don't know how to explain mental exhaustion to someone who only knew physical tiredness. Back then, being tired meant you played hard. Now being tired meant you think too much. And that kind of creates these simple questions that don't really feel so simple. I don't think they would ask about money or how many followers you have or people that you think are cool. I think they'd ask things like, do we still laugh like that? Do we still run towards things we're scared of? Do we still believe we can be anything? Those questions would hit harder than any insult ever could, because somewhere along the way, belief becomes conditional. At 10 or whatever young age it is, confidence was automatic. You didn't need evidence to believe in yourself. You just did it. And now belief requires proof. It requires results, validation, reassurance even. And they'd be confused by that. They might ask, why do you need someone else to tell you that you are good enough? The truth is, you weren't always like that. But I don't think it'd be all bad either. He'd see the strength too. He'd see the scars, not just physical, but the way you carry yourself differently. See the movements. You didn't quit when it would have been easier to just disappear. You wouldn't fully understand depression or anxiety or heartbreak. You would understand fighting. And at that young age, fighting through hard things makes you a superhero. They'd think you're brave just for surviving days you didn't talk about. You think it's cool that you kept going when things hurt, because to them, resilience isn't invisible, it's almost legendary. And maybe that's something you forgot along the way. So that kind of begs the question of what would confuse him. And in that shift, I think he'd notice something else too. He'd notice how careful you are now, how you measure your words, how you hesitate before saying what you feel, how you overthink texts before you send them. When you're young, you don't really filter yourself to be accepted. You were outgoing, opinionated, passionate. If you liked something, you said it. If you didn't, you said that too. Now you weigh every single decision. And they'd probably ask, why do you care so much what they think? And you might say something along the lines, it's because the world teaches you too. That at some point, being fully yourself gets you hurt. So you adapt and adjust, you become more controlled. But explaining that would feel like explaining how innocence fades away. And that's not something you want him to learn yet. And then at some point in the day, the energy would kind of shift. You wouldn't be walking around anymore, you'd just sit. And they might look at you, not smiling now, just studying you, and ask questions that cut deeper than anything else. Are we happy? Are we successful? Not the did we prove them wrong, did we become important? Happy. And that word would sit in the air longer than you expect, because happiness for him or them, is simple. A bike ride until sunset, winning a game, laughing until your stomach hurts. Now happiness feels almost scheduled or earned, maybe even delayed. I'll be happy when I achieve this, when I fix that, when I pay that off. Maybe somewhere along the way you start treating happiness like a reward instead of a baseline. And they might think or just look at you waiting for an answer that doesn't require a long explanation. And then before they leave, before the day ends, before you blink and he's gone, you'd ask them something too. Are you proud of me? Not because you need the praise, but because you need perspective. And he wouldn't give a speech about accomplishment. He wouldn't list your achievements. He'd probably just smile or shrug or say something simple like, you didn't quit. And that would be enough, because when you're young, you don't expect perfection. You don't expect fame. You don't expect to have everything figured out. You just expect effort. You just expect heart. And maybe growing up isn't about becoming someone completely new. Maybe it's about protecting the parts of you that were already real. The curiosity, the bold, the belief, the joy. Maybe the goal isn't to impress the world. Maybe it's to make sure the younger version of you wouldn't feel like a stranger standing in your life. If my 10-year-old self spent a day with me, I don't think he'd judge me. I think he'd remind me that I'm still allowed to laugh, still allowed to believe big, still allowed to live without carrying everything like it's permanent. And maybe the person I've been trying to become is just the kid that I used to be, with more experiences and strength added. At the end of the day, this whole thing isn't really about a 10-year-old version of you showing up at the door or whatever age it is. It's about perspective. It's about realizing that the kid you used to be didn't need to do everything perfectly. They just needed to keep trying. They didn't expect you to have life figured out, or expect you to never struggle, or expect you to be fearless. They just expected you to be real. So the takeaway is simple. Stop trying to become someone impressive to the world, and start becoming someone your younger self would recognize. Thank you. Stay rolly.